The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
One day at a time with its failures and fears, with portion of pain and burden of care, we must meet.
Welcome to Walking Through the Language of the Heart, a journey into the Grapevine writings of Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill W. And now, here are your co-hosts, Chris S. and the Monty'man.
Indeed. Welcome, one and all, to another episode of this very informative program where we are really looking at a lot of historical material in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous through the book, The Language of the Heart, Bill W.'s Grapevine writings from 1944 to 1970, with our good friend and Take 12 Recovery Radio contributor, Mr. Chris S. Good evening, sir.
What do you say, Monty?
Hey. Well, I say that we got an article here that's a little longer than most, and we're going to tackle part of it this week. And what's it called, Chris?
All right, this is from March 1958. It's called On the Alcoholism Front. Now, some of the prior episodes that we did, we started with the psychiatrist. Then we went to the doctors. Then we went to the clergy. And he's then press radio, TV, press radio and film. So the trajectory he's on is, I think he's kind of looking at alcoholism with a wide lens. Let's say, and my guess is when he starts to talk about alcoholism, he's going to include some of those additional perspectives and additional people out there who can be helpful to us.
All right.
So let's see what he has to say.
Yeah.
We are told that there are 4,500,000 alcoholics in America. All right, so so if you go with the 10%, you can go with 5%, whatever percentage you want to go with.
Right.
Let's go with 5%. There's maybe 400 million people in America. You go 5% of that. What would that be? 20 million?
20 million?
Alcoholics, and they had 4 million, and
Back then?
we've had an enormous population growth, and who knows how they were, statistics are so
subjective.
Yeah, they're so objective.
Yeah.
Never ever count on them.
Right.
If somebody's giving you statistics, in the recovery sphere, they're not beholden to the tyranny of accuracy.
Yeah, like when they say, well, they say, who is they?
Yeah. and how exactly did they crunch their numbers? You never find that out either. But let's just say that there's 20 million alcoholics in America today. Up to now, AA has sobered up perhaps 250,000 of them. Wow, that's about 1 in 20, or 5% of the total. This is a brave beginning, full of significance and hope for those who still suffer. Again, I'm going to throw statistics out, not vouching for any of their accuracy, but I was in the professional, around the professional sandbox for a long time, and
sure.
And you and I have interviewed really prominent people in addiction.
Indeed.
And some of them have said that there's a certain amount of alcoholics that spontaneously recover. So they're saying probably 10% of of people spontaneously recover, maybe another 10%, with some therapy or some AA or something like that. So so we're probably around that 5%, maybe greater, that was going on in 1958. Yet these figures show that we've made only a fair-sized dent in this vast world health problem. Millions are still sick, and other millions soon will be. These facts of alcoholism should give us good reason to think and to be humble. Surely we can be grateful for every agency or method that tries to solve the problem of alcoholism, whether of medicine, religion, education, or research. We can be open-minded toward all such efforts, and we can be sympathetic when the ill-advised ones fail. We can remember that AA itself ran for years on trial and error. As individual AAs, we can and should work with those that promise success, even a little success. And Bill did that. Bill gave lectures at the Yale School on Alcoholism. He was forever being asked to participate this way or that way with some of the earlier alcoholism studies, and he was pretty cooperative up to a point. He was always really afraid that the AA name was going to get used or his anonymity was going to get broken or something. But other than that, he really tried to be helpful. Nor ought we allow our special convictions or prejudices to overcome our good sense and goodwill. Now, Monty, you and I have talked about this over and over again. We'll be in a meeting, we'll be in a recovery meeting, and somebody will trash treatment centers,
Yeah.
or somebody will trash medication, or somebody will trash psychiatrists or doctors or whatever, right?
Right.
And I believe it's only the uninformed, inexperienced members that will do such a thing,
Yeah.
because you hopefully mature out of that radical, critical kind of an attitude, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was very critical. Well, you've heard me say it before. I came in there like gangbusters, and I'm going to make sure that this group is following the traditions properly. And I look back at that guy and I go, who was that guy? I think
You were a tradition sheriff.
Yeah, I was, and I grew up. You just do, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we get tired,
Right.
and we really learn to pick our fights, more carefully, after engaging in some of them.
Well, you know what, Chris? I think what happens is, if we continue to fight, other people are growing up without us, and they're just not going to fight with us anymore. It's so fun.
For example, numbers of us think that alcoholism is mainly a spiritual problem. Therefore, we have little time for biochemists who would like us to believe that drunks drink mostly because they are bedeviled by bad metabolisms. Likewise, we are apt to get red hot when psychiatrists wave aside all issues of right or wrong and insist that the real problem of the alcoholic always gathers around the neurotic compulsions which he innocently acquired as a child by reason of being maladjusted by erring parents. Or when social workers say that the true cause of alcoholism are to be seen in faulty social conditions, we are apt to get restive and say, who cares a hang what the causes are anyway? AA can fix drunks without getting into all that. Now, we do have our version of that today. The big, these pushes come and they go. The people who are really deep into them kind of don't realize that because they're so deeply in them. But the trauma-informed process of treating alcoholism is really big now.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying there's not value in that. but the hugging the teddy bear form of recovery. I'm not saying there's no value in that either.
Yeah.
I, I, I'm just saying that I believe alcoholism is a big enough problem that it takes a big enough solution for there really to be a healthy recovery. There can be tentative sobriety. There can be substituting alcohol with a drug or something, right? I'm the type of guy I would tend to define recovery as happy, joyous, and free. I would describe recovery as having 100 of the promises come true that are in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. That's just my lens of recovery. Now you go to a addiction symposium or something, and there's going to be 50 other lenses, and
Sure.
they're going to be looking at it in a different way. I think what Bill is saying is, let's be grateful for the people that are actually working on this stuff rather than being critical because they're using a different book than we are. You,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
In similar fashion, some of us AAs decry every attempt at therapy save our own. We point to certain clinics and committees that have accomplished little. We complain that huge sums are being wasted by state and private sources. We roundly thump every experimental drug that turns out badly. We belittle the attempts of the men and women of religion to deal with us drunks. We believe that sound alcohol education is a good thing, but we also are apt to think that AA indirectly is doing most of it anyhow. That that paragraph could be true in practically any meeting today, don't you think,
I think
Monty?
so. Yeah. Yeah. We believe that sound alcohol education is a good thing. I hope so, but we are also apt to think that AA indirectly is doing the most of it anyhow. Yeah, I would have to say so. It's interesting because I rub shoulders with people in the treatment world and in the faith-based recovery world that are opposed to the 12-step method, or they're opposed to any secular method at all. And yet, the basis for most of their program that they have comes out of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what I mean? And it's like they don't know what they don't know. So instead of arguing with them, just okay.
I love what Mark Houston used to say. He goes, we're all on our way up the mountain, and we're all riding a donkey, and we're heading up the mountain, and each of us has got our own donkey, and the only stupid thing we can do is to say our donkey's better than yours. We're all going up the mountain, an experience with the divine.
Yeah, that's great.
I love that. Now, this may seem to be a confession of the sins of AA, and in some part it is. It is also a confession that at one time or another, I myself have held many of these often short-sighted views and prejudices. But I do make haste to add that what I've just said applies far more to AA's past than present. And I believe it applies to AAs between 9 months sober and 5 years sober, or 10 years sober. Today, the vast majority of us welcome any new light that can be thrown on the alcoholic's mysterious and baffling malady. We don't care too much whether new and valuable knowledge issues from a test tube, a psychiatrist's couch, or from revealing social studies. We are glad of any kind of education that accurately informs the public and changes its age-old attitude toward the drunk. More and more, we regard all who labor in the total field of alcoholism as our companions on a march from darkness into light. We see that we can accomplish together what we could never accomplish in separation and in rivalry. I have many, many friends, and I've got many, many sponsees, Monty, that work in the treatment field.
Mm-hmm.
We got a call tonight from a clinical director of a local area. I mean, she runs the entire recovery program at a very prestigious, recovery center not far from here. Just asking some questions about some of the stuff that Andrea and I know a lot about. And we're all, darn it, we're all here to help each other. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't you think?
Yeah, my dad used to say a lot. He drilled it into me. He said, "You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution." That's the bottom line. What are you going to be? And if you're not part of the solution, be quiet.
Get out of the way. Yeah.
Get out of the way.
Preoccupied with AA and its affairs, I must admit that I've given too little thought to the total alcohol problem, but I do have a glimpse of it, and that glimpse I would like to share with you. Take those 4,500,000 drunks in America. What is their condition now? What is being done? And what might be done for them? What about the next generation? Yet another 4 million who are still children and adolescents. Accepting for what AA can do, must they be victims too? Let's start at the bottom of the heap. Our mental institutions are flooded with the brain damaged and deeply psychopathic. Here and there, a few find their way back, but not many. Most are gone beyond recall. The next world is their best hope. But more research upon their condition may add to our knowledge of prevention for the benefit of others who are approaching the jumping off place. Great numbers of alcoholics are also to be found in prisons. Either alcohol directly got them into the jams that landed them there, or they had to drink in order to commit the crimes toward which they had compulsive tendencies. Here, research, medical, psychiatric, and social is plainly needed. AA can't do this job, but others have already made a great beginning. Those are some really good examples of legitimate and very, very helpful areas of study.
Yeah.
Every large city has its skid row. The so-called derelict alcoholics doubtless number several hundreds of thousands. Some are so psycho and so damaged that the mental hospital is their destination. The rest of those countless men and women clog police blotters, courts, jails, and hospitals. To them, the cost in suffering is incalculable. The cost to society, even in dollars only, is immense. Huge numbers of these, not yet legally insane, are thus condemned to mill hopelessly about. Can anything be done? In all probability, yes. Perhaps these sufferers can be transferred to farms where in some sort of quarantine confinement they can do enough work to support themselves, be in better health, and save their respective critics great sums and trouble. This and other related experiments are beginning to offer much more hope for the skid rower. Individual AAs are helping, but most of the work and the money will have to come from elsewhere. This work is kind of continuing, Monty. Every large city has a skid row.
Sure.
Every city struggles with how to house, feed, deal with, health care for these people on skid row. I think the best I've ever seen is not too awful far from you, up in Vancouver. I got a tour of the skid row in Vancouver, and I was quite impressed, Monty.
Yeah.
They were out on the sidewalk, but they had boundaries. Each of them had their own piece of sidewalk.
Right.
It's
right.
like you owned that little acre.
Yeah.
And at night, like at 11 at night or whatever, they would be brought into a shelter, to be able to sleep. And at 8 in the morning or something, they'd be escorted back out, and they'd go find their place on the sidewalk. And it was like kind of a humane way to deal with it. And there was all kinds of social services that would make themselves available for whatever was needed. And I saw it as a very humane way to deal with it. I'm afraid sometimes in our country, we see addiction as a crime. We see the drug addicts as criminals, the alcoholics as criminals, and sometimes they are. But there's not the empathy that you would have for child cancer. I'm just going to tell the story. I know it's inappropriate, and you're probably going to get hate mail, but so
Why
we
not?
had one of our grandchildren came down with leukemia. He's 2.5 years old. He comes down with leukemia. It freaks all of us out, right? But there's a hospital, a children's wing in this hospital that's not far from here. And Monty, you go into this place, right? It's remarkably clean, and the people can't be nicer. And they give you like cucumber water when you walk in. And there's these toy rooms, right, where you can take any toy you want home, and it's filled with toys. And there's clowns, Monty. There's clowns that come through, and everybody is so nice. And I go there with my grandson, and right after that, I go to an AA commitment at a treatment program in the same hospital, and it's in the basement where the radiators are steaming. You can't see the light of day. Nothing has been cleaned in 3 months. You know what I'm saying? Now
Yeah.
listen, I'm not complaining about the really nice care for children's cancer. They cured our grandkid. I'm unbelievably grateful. I just see the disparity,
Yes.
between the amount of money that they're willing to spend on child cancer and how much they're not willing to spend on alcoholism or addiction treatment. It's unbelievable.
And don't you think that a lot of that is due to once again to misinformation, to the stigma that surrounds addiction still today, that addict equals criminal, addict equals homeless by choice. And
They're doing it to themselves is what you still hear. You still hear that from senators and congressmen, unbelievably.
Yeah.
You still hear that.
Yeah.
I think if education would have fixed it, it would have fixed it. I think it's deep ingrained prejudice and stigma. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of people who've tried to shift the script.
Yeah.
Chris Christie's one of the politicians that's out there doing it now. He's running for president. He doesn't stand a chance, but his main thing is addictive illness. So there are people that are paying attention. Not many of them.
Yeah.
But what now of the millions of alcoholics who haven't hit prisons, asylums, or skid rows? These, we are told, constitute the vast majority. At the moment, their best hope of recovery seems to be AA. Well, then why haven't the millions come to us? Or why haven't they tried to get well by some other method? Any AA can give you a quick and very accurate answer. They aren't ready. They don't know how sick they really are. If they did, they would flock to treatment, just as though they had diabetes or cancer. The problem, therefore, is how to expose them to the facts that will convince them they are gravely ill. That's the problem we have when we're sponsoring people.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right?
Yes. Just when I think somebody I'm working with is actually getting it, I realize they don't get it. It's like so. I got to tell a story here too, real quick.
Sure.
So I'm sitting in a 12-step support meeting, and I'm hearing this guy who I'm awfully fond of, this young man, and he has recently decided not to just quit drinking, but he has discovered that the use of cannabis brings him more anxiety than when he doesn't use it. And I've been telling him that for a long time, that you're trying to treat the problem with the problem. And he said, I finally decided to listen to you. I stopped smoking pot and my anxiety level is just dropped. Well, the other day he comes in and I smoked some pot again. Why do I do the very things that I don't want to do? Oh my God. And I've known this guy for a while, and he's one of these guys that thinks going to meetings and drinking bad coffee and talking about his day is the treatment for his addiction issues. And I'm looking at him and go, you might want to try following some directions. How about it? Well, I'll see you next week.
Jeez.
And I'm like, how many times have we seen that where the set of simple instructions are laid before somebody's feet, but they want to do everything else, but they don't even want to keep using. They just want to stop on their own fuel, and some of them don't make it.
Yeah. How about, dude, you're gravely ill?
Yeah.
How about you're so ill you don't think you're ill?
You're right.
You know what I mean? How about your chances of surviving the next 10 years are less than 50-50? That's how gravely ill you are. Is that possible? And they'll look at you like you're completely insane or totally overreacting to their DUI or
Right.
their divorce or whatever. It's when you can get someone to truly concede to their innermost self that they're gravely ill. You got a real shot that they're going to follow. They're going to follow some suggestions, and so therein lies, the big challenge of 12-step work with other people, I think.
Yeah, and I don't. I've seen people that seem to be afraid to do the work, and then they did the work, and they were so pleasingly surprised, and their life is flourishing. So I don't know if it's that people are afraid to do the work so much as they're just afraid of the unknown. Don't you think?
They're not convinced it's going to work for them.
Yeah.
I might do all this work, Monty, and because I'm different than you, I might have a different experience, and I might waste all that time.
Well,
it's something like that.
You said something before. What are you doing in a 12-step fellowship if you're not willing to do the 12 steps? And I've used that many, many times. It's like, what? You knucklehead? If I'm going to join the Boys and Girls Soccer Club, I'm not going to join and then go down to the movie house and watch movies.
Whatever you do, go all in. You want to do the psychiatric route, go all in. You know what I mean? You want to recover through, the religious organizations, do that. Go all in. You want to come into Alcoholics Anonymous or NA or CA or DAA or any of the A's. Go all in. It's the half measures avails us nothing that we need to really be clear on. And so often we're convinced we'll be fine with half measures.
Right.
And you see more AA members that believe that than believe they won't be fine. So it's just, it's rough.
Yeah.
More than anything, the answer seems to be in education. Education in schoolrooms and medical colleges, among clergy and employers and in families, and in the public at large. From cradle to grave, the drunk and the potential alcoholic will have to be completely surrounded by true and deep understanding and by a continuous barrage of information, the facts about his illness, its symptoms, its grim seriousness. Why should an alcoholic have to wait until he's 55 to be horribly mangled to find that out he's a very sick person, when enough education of the right kind might have convinced him at 30 or 35? History has shown that whatever their several merits, neither preaching nor moralizing nor other efforts at reform have ever made much impression on alcoholics as a whole. But factual education about the malady has in the last few years shown great promise. Even now we are seeing a great many younger people coming to AA as a direct result of the recently more widespread information about the disease. That's interesting. So in 1958, a lot of young people were starting to show up.
Mm-hmm.
We AAs have done a lot of this kind of education, and friends outside AA have done even more. As a result, right now, maybe 500,000 of the USA's drunks are trying to get well, or at least thinking seriously about getting well, either on their own or by actual treatment. Maybe this guess is too high, but it is by no means fanciful. Sound education on alcoholism and far more of it at all levels will clearly pay off. Education will not only pay off in numbers treated, it can pay off even more handsomely in prevention. This means factual education, properly presented to children and adolescents, at home and in school. Heretofore, much of this education has attacked the immorality of drinking rather than the disease of alcoholism. Scared Straight. What was that movie that we all used to go see when we were kids about marijuana? Remember that movie? It was like an old,
like the Devil's. What was that thing called? It was it was the same movie they made us watch, and it was along the same thing, Red Asphalt or something like that. The alcohol one.
I can't remember it.
The Devil's Weed or something.
Something like that. And we would get high and watch it. Like it was a bad horror movie or something. We AAs can speak with a lot of conviction about this. Most of our children have been emotionally banged up by our drinking behavior, maladjusted for sure. Large numbers of them should have turned into problem drinkers by now, but they have done no such thing. Alcoholism, or potential alcoholism, is a rare thing to see among the children of AA parents. Not so anymore. Yet we never forbid them to drink, and we don't preach if they do. They simply learn by what they have seen and by what they hear about alcoholism as a ghastly business, and that their chances are about 1 in 15 of contracting the illness alcoholism if they drink. Most of them don't drink at all. Others drink sparingly. The remainder, after getting into a few ominous jams, are able to quit, and they promptly do. This seems to be preventive education at its best. So much of this is true. Bill had such a great perception. My first wife came from a killer alcoholic family. All 3 of her brothers died of alcoholism. Both her parents died of alcoholism.
Wow.
And then there's 3 girls. And she got drunk one time on vodka and was vomiting and never ever drank again.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Like one and done. So some of the stuff that you think is really, pushing the limits of belief, is true.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is entirely possible that many of these AA attitudes and methods can be widely applied to kids of all kinds. Now, who's going to do all this education? Obviously, it is both a community job and a job for specialists. Individually, we AAs can help, but AA as such cannot and should not get directly into this field. Therefore, we must rely on other agencies, on outside friends, and their willingness to supply great amounts of money and effort. Money and effort which will steer the alcoholic toward treatment as never before, and which will prevent the development of alcoholism in millions of predisposed kids who will otherwise take the road we know so well. I can tell you by looking at the high school, the middle schools and the high schools of today, I don't see them doing an adequate job with this. The type of job that would be necessary really to show some good prevention numbers,
I remember when my son was, my 2 boys were in high school, they had the DARE program. And what it amounted to was you would have a DARE officer come, and he'd have this big fold-out display of all these different drugs. And I'm like, what? You're showing them what they look like? I mean, they're going, oh, that looks
I never
pretty.
tried that one,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and listen, for kids back in the 70s, 60s and 70s like us, the last person we're going to listen to is a police officer.
I know, right?
Maybe if they had rock musicians come in and talk to us, it might have been different.
Yeah.
But we're not listening to a cop. We're avoiding police at all costs because we're in the middle of 7 crimes every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's thrown out of my mind at third period. I don't want to see no uniform.
No. As the following fragment of history will show, great and promising progress outside of AA has been made in the field of research, treatment, rehabilitation, and education. It happened that I was a witness to the beginning of modern methods in these areas, and this is what I saw. So we're gonna save Bill's experience with some of the real professionals till next week,
Yeah.
because there's just so many pages in this article.
Good deal. Good deal. So, part 2 on the alcoholism front for next week, listeners. If you'd like to get caught up on these shows, visit us at take12radio.com and click on the Recovery Workshops banner, and there you'll find this workshop as well as many others as well. And you can get caught up on them, or you can download them for fun and for free. Always for fun and for free there, Chris.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. That's part 1 has been a fun journey on the alcoholism front. You have a great week. I am off to my 50th high school class reunion. We'll see how many people are sober. It may be entertaining.
It may be.
Yeah. All right, my friends. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with Chris S., and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
For more recovery workshops with Chris S. and the Monty'man, visit our website at take12radio.com and click on the Recovery Workshops banner.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow, meow, meow.
Woof, woof.